Hey everybody, it's Adam from the Combat Chain here. Before we get into episode 43 of the podcast, I have a quick update to share with you all. For those of you who don't already know, Pat has decided to step away from the channel. Now, today is Monday, January the 30th, and when we actually sat down to record the episode you're about to listen to was Tuesday the 24th. And when we hopped on Discord that night to get ready to record this episode, we had a little check-in to see where our heads were at in relation to the progress of the channel. And I know at the time I was feeling quite frustrated and disappointed for reasons pertaining to just my performance in the ProQuest season up until that point. And Pat on his end experiencing some burnout and just desire to figure out a better way to maintain his work-life balance and still wanting to stay active with content creation, but trying to do it on his terms. And we, in that moment, decided maybe it would be for the best to temporarily put a pause on the podcast while we found our bearings and figured out how to proceed. And we actually, at that time, sat down and recorded a cold open such as this one to explain all this to you. And we left it at that and recorded the show. And the following day is when Pat made the decision that he actually thought it would be for the best if he stepped down from the Combat Chain entirely to figure out things on his end. And I'll say right away, I fully respect his decision. He was a big part of the team, and I wish him all the best moving forward. There is certainly no ill will here. However, that left me in a position where I had to decide what would happen next with the podcast and the channel. And at first I didn't know. I really had to dig deep and do some soul searching throughout the rest of the week, which is in part why this episode has taken this long to come out. For those of you who were with us from the beginning, you might remember that this podcast started off as Andrew, Jeff, and myself before they decided they wanted to focus more on playing the game. Once again, I had nothing but respect for that decision, but it left me also having to pick up the pieces and figure out how to move forward. And that's when I put out feelers and I found Pat. And in a friend's words, Pat gave the podcast go again. And I'll definitely appreciate all his contributions to the show. Certainly, I don't think we would be where we are now without him, with having some of the phenomenal guests and conversations we've had. That was a huge kudos to Pat. That was the Combat Chain for this past year really was our vision. And I'm proud of though part of what initiated our conversation on Wednesday was the reality that we haven't hit some of the benchmarks we set out for ourselves. But despite that, this journey has been incredible, and I'm proud of what we did accomplish. And over this past week, I realized I still want to keep pushing the Combat Chain brand forward, and I want to see what comes next. And the reality is, I don't know at this time. What I do know is I want this project to keep moving forward. I know I have the time and energy to commit to it, and I have the motivation and desire. And the thing I have to figure out next, and this is something I've been reflecting on for the past while anyway, is what is the vision moving forward? What's the vision? What's the goal? What's our niche? When Andrew and Jeff stepped down, I had a pretty clear vision of where I wanted to go next, and what I needed the most was somebody who was willing to meet me halfway, and Pat was certainly that, and then some. at this point in time, what I have is a set of strengths and grit, and the part I'm missing is the vision. But my hope moving forward is to network and find people to connect with that we can work together to just bring some really cool content to you guys. I don't know what the timeline is. I don't know how and when this goes next. I have to put in some work to find some like-minded people who want to see this thing grow. The thing I am hopeful about this time around is, unlike last time, I have a platform. I have you guys listening right now. Like I said, you guys mean the world. You're a huge reason I'm still moving forward with this project, and I'm hopeful that in the next few weeks I'll have some exciting announcement for everyone. But until then, stay tuned. Thanks for listening, and let's give Pat a good send off.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Combat Chain. I am your host, Patrick. Have you heard about this new combo in Flesh and Blood? It's Findel Spring Tunic, Command and Conquer, and a Blue Pitch, and a Pummel. It's game-breaking stuff. Shaw. And with me, as always, is my co-host, Adam. I didn't like hypothermia in the first place. Philip Chuck. Adam, welcome to the podcast again. Hi, how you doing?
Well, I'm doing okay, Pat. Happy to be here.
Yes, I'm assuming that this will come a natural progression to our intro, so you'll understand, what he means by that. We have a crazy episode for you because we're gonna act like there's no tomorrow, because there just might not be. And to help celebrate the end of the world, we have one handsome bastard with us. He is an author. You know him from the Wrath Times. Kai's gonna kill me. But he is an author for the Wrath Times, and he very recently became the ProQuest 3 data analyzer for LSS, and you can see his articles being posted on the main page each week at the end of each ProQuest weekend, discussing the meta and the hero breakdowns. He's also got just amazing eyes, and him and his wife make some great content together. Parker Brown, you know him as Breezy. Welcome to the Combat Chain.
Hi.
Now you heard all of that before we started. What's your 2 cents on it?
Yeah, that will. You prefaced a little bit. You're like, hey, we're gonna do this like intro, so just hang tight. And I was like, oh no, what is this? And so yeah, I heard it live for the first time. Man, I completely agree and totally understand with your reasoning. I mean, there's madness in chasing yourself and your expectations, and when they're not at the place where you humbly set them, it's like, okay, well then let's take a pause and reassess. And I think that's like the most healthy, mature, adult thing to do in work and life and passion and hobby, whatever it is. So it sucks. I mean, what the hell? But yeah, no, I stand beside you, and let's rage with this last one.
Let's go. Now, Parker, you've been a pillar of the community for a very long time. Before content was even a glimmer in anyone's eyes, you were a playmat and a pleasant voice in a once thriving webcam community. Recently, there was a bit of a mourning here with Pro Tour 3 the Pro Tour 3 announcement. there was kind of there was a sadness kind of a wash over the online community, because it really it is no longer realistic for people to grind XP in order to qualify for these events. And a lot of that is the armory. There's no armories, and even if you go into the international Discord, the density of games have just dropped precipitously. Mourn with me.
Yeah.
You were a big webcam guy. How do you get your jollies right now to playing Flesh and Blood?
Yeah, it's weird to think that this time last year, it was I just had a daughter, so I was pretty landlocked, and so webcam games, even prior to that, but certainly during this time last year, it was like any outlet of Flesh and Blood was webcam. And so it's weird to see how that's just like one fan-made client can change the whole whole perspective, right? Of like, oh, it doesn't have to be top down camera, microphone, like the 16 cords plugged in to have this game. It's just point and click. And so simplicity took over, but with that, we lost some emotion and some camaraderie.
The human element of it really backed away.
It's something that I've been thinking about too. Currently, I play on said Talishar client quite a bit, especially as I'm like testing a deck and stuff. I will say too, like, that's the easiest way to get a deck tested. You slap it together. You don't even have to touch your cards, and you just copy paste, play game. That deck sucks. Try again. Whereas webcam, you really had to kind of sit there in your solemn silence and test by yourself and be like, cool, I think I'm ready to take this to the international Discord webcam channel, and I feel like it's ready for
at LFG. Let's go.
That's sick. I want a tattoo of that somewhere. Right. LFG. That's sick. I also moved too, so I'm still in Texas. I'm just maybe 45 minutes east of where I was, and so it's pretty quiet out here. It's a new developing area, and so there's one LGS like 30 minutes away from me that has like 4-person armories every Monday, and so that's like my one outside outlet aside from Talishar.
Yeah. I will say I was going to an armory on Sundays, and that was it was a 4-person, sometimes 5. Every once in a while it really popped off. But I haven't been able to go at all, and it kills me because Arachne is the cold foil, and it's all I friggin' want. But I think I'm gonna have to bite the bullet and just buy one, and the extended art cut the chases, because I just can't get there. Can't do it. Hashtag FabDad. Just
tell me about it. Yeah, exactly. And that's still, you would think that after 2 years of me pretty in depth with this game and committed, my wife would know it's not a phase and not get pissed off at me when I'm like, hey, I'm gonna go hang with the boys at the local car shop. And she's like, no, we got shit to do. It's like, all right. No, it's like, damn it. You're right. We have children and dishes and groceries and laundry and It's tough it's tough to get out there sometimes.
That's what I love my wife, but she's busy a lot of evenings that so she usually goes and does, she's on town committees, and she has a part-time job, and so forth and so on. So 5-6 nights she goes, she's out the door. Sometimes she's back after like a half hour, but I've committed. I'm here. I'm here now. I can't just stop playing. I gotta finish what I'm doing. And that might be what's getting me in trouble, but it is what it is. Excellent. So talk to me about this gig with LSS. You are what was the job title? You're the guest data guy.
I guess so. Yeah. It it was really interesting. Yeah, I got an email back from LSS saying, hey, we're looking to fill the guest roster for the first quarter of our Flesh and Blood content for the website, and we checked out some of your previous work on Briar and some other hero, like just deep dives essentially, other previous articles, and they were just like, we'd love for you to do the data analysis, metagame data analysis for ProQuest 3. And I mean, for me, I was like, why? Like, what for? This is so weird. I'm not a numbers guy. I admittedly don't even handle my own finances. If I did, I'd be homeless. So when I look at percentages and ratios and things like that, I didn't see how that clicked for them. But I was like, you know what? This is LSS. Maybe they see something in me that I don't. So let's go for it. So yeah, I accepted it, and so they hit me with a 3-part offer, and so I was like, yeah. I mean, they could have told me to write my feelings about Starvo, but I could only tell you that I loved him, and I still would have said yes, because I don't know, just to get the foot in the door for
Sure.
Opportunity for LSS was fantastic. And it seems like they're making some, obviously you had Alex on, and there's some wheels in moving and some shifting of how they involve the community and who they're involving in certain things, just to keep it fresh. And so I thought it was really cool. I was really, really excited to get some feedback from them and participate in this ProQuest season.
With publicity comes negative reviews. You posted your first article and were immediately chastised by the viewing public for your I didn't quite catch what they were, but they didn't like you. Tell me what it was like to get to the vitriol of the public right in your face.
I called my mom and I was like, hey, I made it. I got haters. It was actually really constructive. It was more so it wasn't necessarily the content itself or the way that it was written or my perspective on it. It was the delivery of certain information. And actually, it was some of the good feedback was like, hey, it's really hard to follow these pie charts when there's like tiny hair-sized slivers and there's 17 colors in the color key, and they all look different shades of each other. It's like, or one person was like, yeah, I'm like kind of hard of seeing and certain colors blend together, and so this pie chart's really hard to see. And I was like, man, y'all, I promise I didn't make that. Like, the people at LSS make those graphics and they import them, but I owned it, so that was the biggest thing, is especially as it pertains to like the professionalism when I'm doing something for LSS. It's like, just own it. Just be like, I totally hear you. I'll submit your feedback to them, and I did. And so I think it was really healthy for LSS to hear a lot of that feedback, which I'd say 98% of it was out of my control. So I kind of got off the hook there.
It's good. I think people need to realize it's the unintended consequences of a supposedly healthy colors you didn't think that you would have to before. Look, when it was ProQuest season, it was Visceri, Starvo, and Prism. You just had to worry about those colors, and then the field. Right, right. That's what you had. Now you have 17 different winners in a ProQuest. That means each one's got to be accounted for. So when your color scheme is earthy tones in the first place, you're going to get a little blending. And apologize to the colorblind. When they have to see it for the first time.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Yep. Side effects of a wide meta. Large pie charts. So,
you had a very nice breakdown of week 1, and you're going to have a very nice one of week 2 and 3. But right in the middle of it today, as of this recording a couple hours ago, there was a banned and suspended announcement pushed back from January 30th to January 25th New Zealand time, but January 24th in the U.S. my birthday is on the 25th, so it's like they wanted to give me something in New Zealand on my birthday, and they gave me the banned and suspended list. So it almost invalidates whatever you're gonna do, whatever you're gonna say at that point.
Yeah. Like I mentioned to you, I'm literally took a break from writing the week 2 article to do this, and so now and it's due tomorrow. So I'm just like, what do I? Thanks, thanks, Brian. And thankfully it's not, one of those. It's an immediate effect. Mm-hmm. So I'm teetering on the side of like, how do I include this because it's relevant news, but also like, it's not as relevant as it is going into week 3 of ProQuest. Right, so there's going to be a tip of the hat to it and mention, but it's definitely thrown a wrench in my creative process for sure.
Right, now you're working strictly within the capsule of this isolated ProQuest season because the meta will change immediately afterwards, right? So nothing holds water past.
Exactly.
Time. I want to while I'm thinking about it, I do want to shout out and apologize to Brian Gottlieb, who I dismissed as a lowly contractor for LSS. I don't think that they would give him the authorship of the BNS announcement if he was a temp there. So good on you, Brian. You clearly the best of us in this card space, and I if I have it right, I believe you had a big hand in Outsiders. So if it's successful, we'll give you all the credit in the world, and if it blows, it's your fault.
Yeah, he designed, if I'm not mistaken, Arachne in the assassin class. So
the class as it sits in Dynasty has Gottlieb's fingerprints all over it.
Yeah,
we're gonna let's touch on it right now. Arachne, 2 ProQuest wins, Living Legend points. Arachne beat Levia and Azalea to Living Legend. Is that correct? Am I doing the math right there?
Yes. Does Levia not have any? Levia?
I don't think so.
I think she. Yeah, I'm not sure.
I think young Levia might have some LL
maybe
and Blitz,
young,
but I don't think she's got any right now.
Regardless, yeah, no. And what's interesting, I played my first ProQuest just this Sunday. So what? 2 days ago, and I sat across an Arachne as Viserai, and it was. I didn't really know what to expect because I've played Arachne quite a bit, but I was like, man, you got some gall bringing Arachne. This must be a gnarly list. So I was like, it was like kind of a power move. So I was kind of intimidated. I wonder how much of that psyche plays into it, because it definitely affected me. I was like, I know every card in that deck. I know your strategy, but that's still a little like, what's he gonna do? What kind of shit?
Like, how's he gonna get there?
Yeah, how's he gonna get there?
And that's the big question, right? How's he gonna get there?
People did it. Yeah.
Well, caveat, right? Asterisk. One person did it Saturday and then Sunday.
Very true. Very true. Yep. Yeah. So even more of a power move is just back to back, take him down.
It is with the same list, very fatigue heavy. The pilot of this back-to-back ProQuest winning Arachne deck is Tao Tao Chu out of I believe he's California based. Is where they won. But there's a deck tech on it on Alan Lub's YouTube channel, so check it out. I am an Arachne aficionado, so I really loved seeing that. I'm having my own. Speaking of like questionable relationships, I got to figure out what I'm doing with Arachne. I think I posted to the team channel that I'm done with trying to make mid-range Arachne work. I think I got to wait till Outsiders, but I've been really trying things like Come to Fight and Nimblism, but it only works in a world where I can block, like where I can successfully and efficiently block with 1 or 2 cards at most, and then be able to clap back. And we don't live in a world where blocking 6 you can block 6, you're still going to get hit with like 15, and it just the value isn't there on the clapback there, so you just are behind. But Arachne's strength is its efficiency in blocking, right? And that's where it fatigues people so readily, is that it can efficiently block, and then when it does squeak through here for something, it does take cards away. Things like Leave No Witnesses, and even exploits things like Command and Conquer. When you have those two together, all of a sudden you're threatening the arsenal twice as much as you thought you would. Everything's a breakpoint attack, so they have to make a decision whether or not to take it or not. And a lot of people don't value, and this is where the problem comes, right? Arachne values cards being banished, so you don't get to play with them anymore. No hero really cares about that unless you stop them from doing what they want to do. It is a challenge. So if you can manipulate their deck in such a way that you take away their win cons, then Arachne has the upper hand. But if you are, I take Phi as an example. Phi is like nigh unwinnable for Arachne. Why? Because it does not matter what you take from them, as long as it's not like Art of War. And as long as they get Art of War into hand, it's probably game over for you, and you're not going to be able to clap back at any extent there. And Jerome, go ahead.
I was going to say, sometimes too, it's even, just looking at the top card of your deck and being like, oh, I don't want to see this game. I'm just going to drop that down. And so just disrupting some of your just luck draws, say for me, if he sees a Mordred Tide on the top of my deck, he's going to say, nah. And I won't see a Mordred Tide, which likely we're not seeing second cycle in that game unless he's going for pure fatigue. But yeah, so there's that disruptive, like, I don't want you to play the cards you want to play, so I'm just going to hide them from you. If I can't banish them, I'm just gonna make sure you don't see him, which is super cool. I love that. That's like the dual-sidedness of him. If I can't get rid of him now, I'll just hide him for later.
Right. Yeah, you're definitely, like, if you can master the manipulation of the top and bottom of the deck, you're in a pretty good spot. You still have some pretty polarizing matchups, but that gameplay is really it really interests me, and I've dove deep into Arachne, and it feels like it's so different than Phi. And I love aggro. I love Phi. I love, I was a Briar before that. Just dump my cards down and deal a ridiculous amount of damage. And Arachne is just the most opposite you could get. And for whatever reason, it has pulled me right into its web. Let's see what I did there.
Nice.
All right. Let's talk about, so the banned and restricted suspended announcement was made today on the 24th of January, and the article itself was authored by Brian Gottlieb, friend of the pod, previous guest of the channel here, and a very well-spoken, very intelligent, and incredible card player from by all accounts here, and he is helping LSS steer the ship in the direction to make it healthy long term. And this article, he mentions the philosophy towards using the banned suspended list as being threefold. Sometimes they use it for addressing card interactions that are degenerate or create negative play experiences. Sometimes it's because they messed up, and sometimes it's to actively manage the format. And today's changes, he says, is around actively managing the format. So let's take a look. Classic Constructed. I will say I don't think there's any changes in Blitz, so this is strictly Classic Constructed related. The following changes to Classic Constructed are effective from January 30th, 2023, the conclusion of ProQuest season. Belittle is banned. Winter's Wail is banned. Amulet of Ice is suspended until Icelander becomes Living Legend. Hypothermia is suspended until Icelander becomes Living Legend. So I check out the article. They justify their stance, and I think all of it makes sense for how they portrayed it. So let's talk about the consequences here. Right. Let's start with Belittle. Parker, what is your first impression when you saw Belittle is banned What were your first thoughts, and what are you thinking now?
Yeah, I've never liked that card, to be honest. I mean, the way that it's described, or the way that Brian, spells it out is, and he even uses the word it cheats the resource system. That's exactly almost verbatim how I've discussed it with some buddies of mine, and who admittedly they've played the belittle plans, or been fans of that interaction themselves, and that's something that I've never really enjoyed about it. So I was fairly pleased to see that, one, it's gone, and two, that LSS has the bandwidth for even though they're a small still relative to the card game industry, still have the bandwidth to keep an eye on such an interaction like that. I mean, it's not hard to see when it's front and center on the top tables of pro tours and things of that nature. But yeah, so it's good on them to at least address it and say, hey, yeah, this is fundamentally breaking the value of your cards when you can it takes away the risk and reward of your deck building, and you can kind of just cheat your way into resources while also presenting 3 damage. So it also, the thing that really irked me with that card is heroes like Viserai were using it. No shame to Hamish. I love that dude. He's a huge Viserai staple in the Viserai community, but he and many others have pushed the belittle Vis, and it works, but it is not my Vis, and it's not, so it changes it changes the structure of a hero, which we've all kind of fallen in love with, lore base and the backstory and all that, and then you just see this belittle and minnowism interactions. Like, no, that's not what he does. that's not what he that's cheating. You're cheating. So yeah, so it was a sigh of relief to know that that's gone. Personally, I'm not speaking for many, but personally, I'm enjoying that it's gone.
Adam?
The one thing that came to mind for me right away, I think back to Worlds, the Q&A, Jason Chung talking about how belittle is such an integral part to belittle minnowism is such an integral part to aggro decks doing things outside of just playing zero cost go again cards. And that when I read the announcement today, that was what my mind thought right away, is that, wow, LSS is thinking now that belittle minnowism is such a problem that they want to push aggro decks down that direction instead. And I mean, it makes sense though, because belittle minnowism adds resources to your hand. Like, most decks are just playing the blue minnowism now, and it's you go fetch it so you can get an extra 3 resources, and it's kind of busted when you think about it. I remember when the combo first dropped, like, people were only playing it into control, but now that it's just become a main deck in pretty much every aggro mid-range strategy, yeah, I think it's time to let it go and force decks to get a little more creative with their deck building. Whether that means, if you need the extra resources, maybe you're slotting an energy potion now and you're like trying to build up a board state that way, or maybe you are playing a zero cost go again strategy. Like, Fi is going to go in a zero cost go again strategy. Rune Blades, it's going to depend on the Rune Blade and the flavor of what you want your deck to do, but it forces people to get creative again, which I think is just, the deck building got really stagnant in the aggro field. So I think this is a good hit.
I spent all of 2022 hating this card, and now that it's gone, I feel, I don't know, I feel an emptiness, I guess, a void here. My biggest problem with belittle has always been that it is a generic, right? When Fi came out, right? Dragons, fire, ninjas, Volcor, little guy with an X, right? Is the best card in the deck, right? Briar, right? Briar, Earthbound, Rune Blade, signature, signature character type of the game here, mixing arcane and physical damage and infusing her power with the mountains. Little guy with an X, and just coming around.
Gimli
and just
swinging in.
yeah, just basically right. Like any aggressive deck, what was the best cards? It's likely belittle. It starts and ends with belittle and what you were doing with minnowism. I do pour one out to Oscar, who loses just like his baby was Royal Briar with this belittle package that really did well, was very unique in composition, and things like Blue Stir the Wildwood, just chef's kiss. Cash out in there to take care of the crown afterwards and still get some value out of it. Never saw Cash Out be played by anybody at all, and he made it work, and now it is dead. So I am so sorry. I think the reason I get a little apprehensive is that it's about timing what didn't come with it. Right. I think everyone had an understanding that with Belittle came Channel Lake Frigid. Right. They offset each other. Channel Lake Frigid is still here. Right. Belittle is not. Will the fears of those that thought Channel Lake Frigid would become the dominant ice piece now that you cannot fetch that resource is what I think everyone will be looking at now. Does this mean ice in a more defensive control-y package become the de facto foil to an aggro strategy that once was able to get through those frostbites? It'll be interesting to see how. Well, let's talk about the decks that had it that no longer do. Right. So I would say. Parker, tell me if Belittle This was popular. Was it still as prevalent? I feel like that. I feel like Viscerai in itself has kind of dropped a tier or so down, but the Belittle package in particular doesn't seem to be the popular archetype for Viscerai.
No, and actually, yeah, Viscerai's really fallen off. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's not fun. It's the ice meta really that and Phi. I'd say specifically to Vis. Actually, the Belittle Vis was the most consistent because of that blue resource. You could go fetch and pop off on a big shrill.
There's a common thread you'll see here. Is that
exactly
right? Belittle brought consistency.
Yeah.
I look at Phi, right? I'm a big fan of Phi, and I felt like Belittle was necessary. But one of my problems was, and I was talking about this with one of my trusted compatriots here in the Draconic Ninja realm. I always had a problem with blues and Phi, and Belittle did not help my problem with blues. They were nice to have in and against ice heroes, but really all I wanted was a blue, a hand. And if you had and Adam can kind of speak to my laughably just terrible luck, or so it seems, when it comes to variants and what I would draw. I was down at one point to 12 blues, and I think 10 blues and then 2 minnowisms on a Phi list, and still like getting an Art of War and drawing 2 blues, and just game killing scenarios, or having that Belittle out there and not being able to do any, if you have Belittle, you do it right, you do the thing, you get the card. The amount of times that I would do that and now have 2 blues in hand where I just wanted the one, right? It always felt like my hands were being clogged up with those extra resources, and I was never able to put them to use. I had the most success I had was on the Kadachi Phi, Peter Ward's UK Nationals list. But I was able to cycle through, like the things cost something, but hypothermia just screwed it. Like I could not play against Icelander. So I am intrigued by the possibility of Kodachi 5 becoming a thing again, because in a non-ice scenario, I still think it's one of the, like, even if it's whether it's momentum or links, I think Kodachi 5 pound for pound could still handle just about every other deck out there. And the combat links were there, and you gave up against Icelander. You hoped that they didn't have hypothermia in Arsenal when the time came where you had to Kodachi to continue your line, and now you don't have to worry about that. So I'm very interested to see where Kodachi 5 lands. I'm very interested to see where even Emberblade 5 ends there. Rykowski recently was talking about increasing the number of blues in the deck. So his updated core list starts with 16 blues, and I believe has a 17th in the sideboard, maybe more. I think he might actually go up to 18, 19 blues in Icelander. He might change that now because of these things, but I was talking about going all the way down to 12 and getting jammed up because of the belittles. And now he's going the opposite of going, up to 16, 17. So it'll be interesting to see where he kind of stands on that. And I'd say quickly on Briar, right? There's a belittle Briar and there's a non-belittle Briar. We just go with a non-belittle Briar now. That's all. It's my preferred build as it is. So I'm happy to see it. 4 attacks go again. I'll still go with my channel. I think the only thing is that minimalism, red and blue, made creepers really, really great, and that Oscar really leveraged those in that Royal Briar to gain the action points and do the thing, and have yellow snatches with the channel mount, flashing in a channel mount heroic on a yellow flash that was hit with a minnowism on top. Like, it just, all that stuff jive together so that those synergies are now out. Zach Bunn was able to do really well with the creepers build outside of the belittle package. So it'll be interesting to see where creepers kind of ends up in the Runeblade builds, or at least what Briar builds now. All right. Next up, we have Winter's Wail, the one-handed Frosty Hammer signature weapon of Oldham, popularized by Starvo. That gets the banhammer. I think this one is probably the most shocking one of them all, Parker.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think everyone kind of knew. Everyone had been talking about belittle. It's been a thing, but Winter's Wail, I think. I mean, I've seen a lot of people just tossing Oldham to the wayside because this weapon is gone, and I think if that doesn't immediately justify how disgusting that weapon is,
right.
is without it, people don't even want to play the deck. And so it's like, okay, so that's exactly why it probably needed to go. When a hero can, like Oldham, who can, keep cycling cards into his deck based on, Crown of Seeds and his hero defense reaction, and then still just keep a card and hit you with a 4 on hit. It feels long term not healthy. It's just the most unexpected, like you said, but probably my favorite of all of them, of all the bands today. Yep. Yeah.
Adam, no more Frosty Hammers.
It's funny, by the end of the life cycle of this weapon, I learned to not be afraid of the frostbite anymore. And I think that is the key to playing into Winter's Wail, is just being like, YOLO frostbite will still make our turn work. But despite that, the fact that Winter's Wail, you, like, to Parker's point, you block with two cards, hold 1 card to pitch to the whale, arsenal a card. That's such insane value. 4 off of 1 card with an on hit. What other weapon does that? I know people say like Rosetta's broken, but Rosetta takes some work. You have to hold your hand, take a huge hit. You can only do that maybe 2 or 3 times before, if you do not have control of the game, you're dead. Winter's Wail is way more OP than Rosetta ever was, and no, I was very surprised by this ban as well, but I think it's very appropriate.
Yeah, I compare it to, well, I've always said Oldhim has a backup plan. He's got a blue icy encounter that he can play at any moment. You know, oh, I got to chunk my hand. Oh, well, I have this blue icy encounter just sitting here. I can always play. And that feels off balanced a little bit for me. Yeah.
I don't know what takes its place though. I mean, does it become a Nanathos build? Is Titan's Fist? So I guess it's a two-part question, right? As an Oldhim player, are you okay with not having a shield? And if you do, are you okay with Titan's Fist? Is that the weapon you use now?
I think it's going to come down to builds. Like it's going to, if you're trying to fatigue, you probably run cold, or you run Titan's Fist with Rampart because you still want Rampart to fatigue. And meanwhile, like if you're trying to play more of an aggressive build, like you can run Titan's Fist with Stalagmite, and that's a pretty good disruption package for some aggro decks. And then in other aggro decks, you probably, I don't know if it's Anothos or Sledge, like Sledge, at least you can, on every third turn, you can do it with Tunic and one card.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm thinking, right? If I'm going like slightly aggressive build, probably Sledge to exploit the Tunic.
But it's going to be a tough call, because then if we're getting into Sledge Wars, now Expose the Elements comes back into the deck because you want to blow up your opponent's Tunic, and there are so many. Like the reality is losing Winter's Wail opens up so many deck building questions for Oldhim.
It doesn't sound like the worst thing though, right? I mean, I like if you bring in the Sledge and then Tunic, you're adding decision points to your build, and the mirror match becomes a super interesting kind of dance to see who can whittle each other's life total down while maintaining their equipment balance, and maybe it's maybe it is Anothos and tectonic plating. It kind of in a tectonic plating is popular in Oldhim right now in Blitz because you don't have the Crown of Seeds, right? I think if Crown went, Tunic would have gone immediately. You probably just have
Crown's in hot water right now. They've said so. Like Crown's got one strike left, and it's gonna be straight to detention if they.
I think Crown. I think people wanted Crown, right? I think people expected to see Crown, but Oldhim got hit just not where they thought that it was gonna get hit. But belittle Winter's Wail. Things like Plunder Run. Ball. We talk about breaking the tenets of the game, right? Crown does, and they even say it. They basically said, yeah, but it's a legendary,
right?
And it's like,
it's
all right,
collectible.
yeah. So okay, if Winter's Wail was a 4 for 6, or is that okay?
4 for 6 versus 3 for 4.
I don't know.
I feel like they would. The thing is
so
that
now it's a two-handed weapon, I would assume.
Yeah. If Winter's Wail was a two-handed weapon with the appropriate stats, but still had the frostbite on hit,
I feel like it does, because the thing is like even in my pro quest, I've faced against a fatigue Oldhim, and he blocked like a 14-15 damage Revel turn and still had a card to pitch to Winter's Wail. And so in that decision point, he would have had to take damage and then still had, said, well, if I want to clap back with anything, I have to keep these two cards. And so maybe that was the difference maker, is that it's a 1 card hold and still present disruption and damage. If it was a 2 card hold with the same disruption and damage, I think we would be pushing Oldhim's down a little bit. So yeah, even if it was a 4 cost for 4,
right? If you had like all right, let's say all things were equal with Winter's Wail, but it said you needed 2 ice cards in pitch in order to get a frostbite, right? I think anything along those lines, right? The Anothos type of effect where you need 2 cards of a particular type, so you have to you have to put in the tectonic plating, or you have to use something else in order to gain the value off of it. That I think that seems to be that's very Guardian-esque, and to that point, Winter's Will is not. It is not Guardians-esque there. All right, moving on. We have Amulet of Ice. We'll do this collectively. Amulet of Ice and Hypothermia are both suspended until Icelander becomes living legend. Does this... I mean, I feel like Michael Hamilton's waking up tomorrow and going, okay.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
sure.
The point that he makes, though, in the article where it's like, the card we tried to make balanced by not having any block, but the fact that it's still seeing such dominant play and the disregard for its non-blocking capacity and still being so disruptive. So they basically admitted, we didn't make it, you didn't have to jump through enough hoops. It should have cost 1, or maybe it should have lost the go again. But yeah, it's a setup card, and that's, Icelander's whole thing is to chip, have the setup, and then pop off, when you're at like 9 to 12 life. And so I think without it, though, I don't know. I'm super aggro, so it never really affected me that much.
Adam, you're pretty well versed at this point in Icelander. How do these two cards kind of affect your thinking of the hero?
So it's funny that with Hypothermia, I know, like, if we use Michael Hamilton as the benchmark for determining if a card gets played or not, Michael Hamilton was growing increasingly, what's the word? Just like unimpressed by Hypothermia, and me and following in his footsteps, I also found that, like, there's times where I'm arsenaling like if you're playing into Ninja, for example, you're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna arsenal this Hypothermia, I'm gonna get them, and then they go Rising Resentment. You're like, okay, what's next? Mounting Anger. Okay, what's next? Right. Ronin Renegade. And you're just like, well, what am I going to do? And then, like, same thing with Dash. Like, Dash is the one who I think Hypothermia disrupts the most. And you're like, once again, I'm going to arsenal this Hypothermia. I'm going to get them. And they're like, High Octane? And you're just like, well, shit. And you flip the table and walk away. That's been my opinion with Hypothermia. Like, it can be really good, but it's just becoming harder and harder to disrupt your opponent with it. And then with Amulet of Ice, like, my first thought was, all right, I'll just put Winter's Bite in instead. Like, yes, you could set up some crippling board states with Amulet of Ice, but I don't think. Well, Brian Gottlieb makes a really good point about how it's a non-block card, and you still run it in, like, main board, and that is worth addressing. The fact that you're running this into any deck no matter what, because it's just its ability once you fuse is so powerful. But I don't think this is necessarily crippling to Icelander. I think Icelander can still persevere through these bans.
All right, so ProQuest season notwithstanding, does something rise to the top here that wasn't already there? It does seem like, right, the motivation here was to manage the format and take the top 3 decks not out of the equation, but out of the dominant talk. They want to reshape that closed polygonal figure, and no longer have it be that triangle of ice, phi. So what if anything gets upgraded here? I have a thought now that as I'm saying this. If I am a Dawnblade wielding Dorinthia,
I was about to say
right
warrior,
now,
100%. Yeah,
I am just giddy. In fact, if those bands, I think I've been on the record here that maybe not on the cast, but if I were to be able to attend I can't attend a ProQuest, but if I were to be able to attend a ProQuest, I personally would bring Dorinthia Ironsong to that ProQuest, and I would feel good about where I was against just about everybody. And I think I put in some good work lately with Dorinthia. I got Iron Song Pride really fucked me. I'm not happy about it. I drew it in what was the last turn of the game, and I really needed it to be a shunt. And the fact that it was Iron Song Pride, I was like, oh, man, I run one copy. It just killed me. But without hypothermia, in things of that nature, in the kind of handicapping of the premier aggro deck, I feel like that is the window. That is the door. That is the door to the promised land, opening up that Dorinthia Ironsong needs to waltz right in. And I feel like the Flukes and Laos of the world are licking their lips and are raring to go. And I feel like Dorinthia just moved up to, I would maybe as A.5, A+. Maybe I'd love for her to be S tier right now. I have always said that if Dorinthia Ironsong is an S tier hero, the meta in whatever form it was is in a good spot, because I think she is her and Bravo are flesh and blood in its purest form for me, right? And if those two are doing the Lord's work here and winning games, then I think we're in a good, healthy place. So that's my take. Dorinthia I think gets upgraded there. I know I asked the question and then answered it. That's a Pat Shaw thing. But Parker, tell me what gets upgraded here.
Dorinthia. No, yeah.
Hey, that's a great answer. I love it.
That's what I was going to say. Dorinthia, I mean, she was already, just based off of some of the meta analysis that we've seen in week 1. I mean, there's a lot out there and they're doing really well. I think Ice is their biggest disruptor, but aside from Dorinthia or even Bolton, like Bolton just went up there too. Bolton's been popping off. I'm trying to think. Let me see. Without those things, I don't know. I mean, we had some really good Azaleas. My buddy's on Azalea. I think
Azalea's definitely been impressing me lately.
Yeah.
And I don't think that it's go ahead, Parker.
No, I was gonna say, I think maybe just without the belittle, seeing how this might affect Phi, if it even knocks him down a peg slightly, then that matchup, any bit more favorable for her would be very interesting to see.
Yeah, it does have a particular sweet spot into Phi. It really is just terrible seeing Azalea on the other side of things.
Well, and the other thing too,
I'm sorry, keep going.
Is I think people are just learning how to play Ranger better as well. Lexi gave a lot more openings to push damage and to just have big turns than Azalea did. And I remember people saying like, oh, Azalea needs more go again. She needs to be able to present more than one on hit per turn or something like that. And I don't think that's actually the case. I think Azalea comes down to, especially Azalea, but like Ranger in general, Ranger is a deck that targets the meta. When a meta's open or when a meta's being defined, Ranger isn't as good. But the moment there's a dominant deck, Ranger can be like, ooh, I know how to play into that. I know how to disrupt that. Like when Phi was like Boomer or Zoomer Phi, Azalea could destroy that deck so quickly because you would red in the
no
ledger.
Armor. You just did it. You just did the thing.
Yeah, red in the ledger. Memorial grounds it to keep cycling it to the top of your deck, and then when you get them sub 10, you kill them off with a Remorseless because they can't kill you because they'll kill themselves first.
Yeah. Yeah, so, I definitely I agree. Does Lexi get hosed by any of this? Did she need hypothermia and or Amulet of Ice?
No, there's no world where Lexi wants to take an entire turn off, go hypothermia, pass.
Yeah, I've seen people in the Twitter sphere. I mean, just like I could count on my hands. It's not a lot, but saying that the Amulet of Ice was a knock to Lexi, but I've played a lot of Ice Lexis, and maybe I just didn't play the ones where I saw Amulet of Ice. So maybe, there's not many out there, but maybe there's some that say, again, struck down by someone else's sins, but probably not too much.
All right,
No,
all
but-
right. That means our time here is up. Is what is happening here, and that is okay. Parker, like a gasoline fire, it is bright, beautiful, and extinguished all too quickly. Thank you for coming on to the Combat Chain and discussing all the surprises and twists and turns that have come out the last 24 hours. We'll simply say this is your time to plug your stuff very quickly. If you've got give your socials, the links. Where can we find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter. It's Breezy. So at Breezy. There's three threes.
Yeah, Twitter has 3 threes.
Yeah,
right?
the Twitter one has 3 threes. Yeah,
Real breezy.
bunch of people already have the 2 threes and a bunch of crazy stuff. But yeah, 3 threes. Breezy. You can find me on Twitter, and then keep an eye on fabtc.com where you'll see week 2 and week 3 of the metagame analysis for ProQuest season 3.
Awesome. Do you have any other projects coming out now? You're hitting the big time here. Are you writing more beyond this point? Do you have anything lined up?
Nothing currently more lined up. I'm good buddies with Steven, DM Armada. We're locals to each other. We're buddies IRL, and so we should be doing some video stuff, discussing some PQ wrap up and recap stuff. And but aside from that, I don't know. I'm pretty open and free agent at the moment. So yeah,
Awesome.
keeping my options open currently.
All right. Well, thank you, Parker, for coming on to the podcast today. We are the Combat Chain. You can find us on YouTube at the Combat Chain. We are streaming wherever you find your audio podcasts. You can. The best way to support us is through our Patreon. It's really difficult to say given the how we began. But you you can find us on. You can support us. The best way is on our Patreon. Go to www.patreon.com/thecombatchain, and you can support one of our many tiers there to help keep the lights and mics up and running. For the love of God, if you just want to support the podcast, get a shout out on the pod, or even get exclusive access to our team testing channel, sign up to our Patreon today. We are on Twitter, of course. You can find us at the Combat Chain. You can find me at Pat Smashgood, and you can find Adam at Fomtoolery TCG. All right, Parker, we have one more little piece of business here. We like to close out every episode with a little saying I say until next week, and we all say in unison, we are closing the Combat Chain. I think I'm going to tweak it a little bit, but I'd still like you to come in with the we're closing the Combat Chain with us, if you will do us the honor.
Yeah, of course.
All right. Thank you again, Parker Brown, decorated author and just handsome fella, for coming on. It's always a treat talking with you, and hopefully we do it again sometime in the future. And that's going to do it for us. So until we'll see. We're closing the Combat Chain.